What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. The New York Mets go into Atlanta and take 2 of 3 from a lowly, beaten up Atlanta Braves team. But did they leave too much on the table, not following through with the sweep and losing game 3 by a score of 4-3? Huge series coming up against the Philadelphia Phillies, and we're talking about all of this right here on this video. Before we fully get into it, please smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel and want more Mets content down the rest of this season in 2025 and into the playoffs if the Mets were to make it there, because this is a very close wild card race with the Cincinnati Reds right on the Mets' tails as we speak. And as always, comment your thoughts and opinions down below about any and every point that you want to talk about that I talk about in this very video. The Mets bats continued rolling at the start of this series, especially in the first 2 games. First game, 21 hits. That ties a season high for this lineup. And anytime you can put up 15 plus hits, let alone 20 plus hits, you are in good shape and you are feeling pretty good about winning that game. Things did get a little bit hairy at the end there, especially with the bullpen performances of Reed Garrett and Ryan Helsley, but they were able to lock it down for the game 1 win. And the Mets go into game 2 again with aggressiveness on their minds with the bats, because they clobbered 6 home runs and really got to the Atlanta Braves starter Cal Quantrill. And at this point, the offense, as we all know, is going to need to put up runs in bunches. And this is the way this series played out. Because in game 3, when they didn't put up runs in bunches and they didn't have their feet on the gas pedals throughout the whole game, they got off to a 2-0 lead in the second inning thanks to a Mark Vientos home run. And they would not score again in the game until the 9th inning, coming up short in the 4-3 loss. This is what happens, and this is what has been happening with this team. Even when the offense is generally considered back on track, if they are in a close ball game, the way that this pitching is going, they are not winning these close ball games. So that is the current state of the New York Mets. We can talk about a lot of things. We could talk about the decision from Carlos Mendoza to leave David Peterson in the game. I like the decision. I know a lot of Mets fans disagree. David Peterson was definitely losing steam, and he also had 4 walks on the day in the 5 2/3 innings pitch that we saw from him, which is an issue within itself. But you are asking these starters continuously, give us more length. We need more length because this bullpen is overused and taxed. And that was what Carlos Mendoza was asking for from David Peterson, who his previous start, by the way, concluded in 8 innings of 1 earned run baseball in Washington. And you had in that situation a very bad hitter with runners in scoring position coming up in Sean Murphy, who had just broken a hitless streak. I think it was like 0 for 20 or 0 for 21 up until that point in his previous at bat. And he was coming up to the plate yet again in a big situation. And the booth was even talking about it. And he came through. Credit to him. You got to tip your cap if you're David Peterson. But Carlos Mendoza in that decision, I have no issues with it. I have 0 issues with it. That's a manager asking his starting rotation to get the job done when they haven't been getting the job done in terms of providing length for the last couple of weeks following up to that point. So that's the first thing. The second thing before we move on to the Phillies series is Gregory Soto, who came into the game in the later stages, the 8th inning, issued a walk himself. One more time, Mets fans. How many times are we going to have to say it? Walks kill. They absolutely are killers for the Mets and any baseball team that has ever played in the existence of this sport. If you issue up free passes, more often than not, you are going to get burned, which is what happened to Gregory Soto, unfortunately, because he's been so good since coming over from Baltimore for the New York Mets. And you can't blame Cedric Mullins on that Jurickson Profar base hit that scored 2 to give the Braves a 4-2 lead at that point. If that were me, if I'm a coach, I'm saying lay out for that. I don't care if that extra runner scores from first base. The probability of catching that baseball far outweighs the probability of not catching the baseball, I would think, because he was right there. He was right there. And if that ball goes underneath him and he fails to catch it, so what? You would hope that there's backup there in the first place to prevent the third runner from scoring, but 2 runs already scored. That's my mindset. I don't blame him for not diving for that baseball, but I just think in that situation, with the game potentially being on the line, you got to lay out for that. And I can't help but think this is not a discredit at all to Cedric Mullins. If Tyrone Taylor's out there, he's getting to that baseball. I firmly believe that. So that's how it played out for the New York Mets. Their ninth inning rally came up short, unfortunately, and it's a series win, but at what cost in terms of momentum going into the Phillies series at home? And this is how things are going to play out. And we will get a lot of answers in this series, especially in the first two games as it pertains to the starting rotation. Because at the time of this recording, and when this video will be released, this is kind of a series preview, so to speak, it's August 25th. It is officially the last week of August before decisions need to be made from teams around the league, including the New York Mets, on who's coming up and who's staying in the minor leagues and who will be postseason eligible. And there's going to be a lot of answers in these first two games from Senga and Manaea and their performances against division rivals and must-win games, whether they're going to stay in this rotation or go to the bullpen in favor of potentially a rookie coming up. And we'll get into that here in the next slide. But these are the potential pitching matchups, right? The probable pitching matchups, I should say. In game one, you've got Kodai Senga going up against Christopher Sanchez. Sanchez is always a very tough outing and a very tough pitcher to go against for any opposing lineup. He's got a 2.46 ERA, and this Mets lineup has seen a lot of Christopher Sanchez over the past couple of seasons. Sean Manaea, who needs a bounce-back performance in a big way. He needs a good start in a big way to try to snowball and gain some momentum here over the next couple of outings going down the stretch of September into potentially playoff baseball. The Mets need Sean Manaea to be Sean Manaea of 2024. That is without a doubt. And there is serious concern about him being in this rotation versus being moved to the bullpen down the stretch. And I think that this start is going to really, really set that decision in stone from David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. Nolan McLean, 1.46 ERA. He's looked amazing over his first couple of outings so far this season. He is making his third start of his big league career versus the Phillies, going up against former Met Taijuan Walker, who's got a 3.44 ERA. And the Mets generally hit well and have hit well during his career as a Philly thus far, ever since signing that free agent deal with them. But, you know, the offense has to show up, because the Phillies bullpen is rejuvenated. David Robertson, yeah, the 40-year-old David Robertson that a lot of Mets fans didn't want to bring back midway through the season when he signed a free agent deal to go back to Philly, he's doing really well for them. He's posting really good numbers for them. Who would have thought? Who would have thought a reliever could actually be effective being 40 plus years old? I was calling for a potential reunion, but I know a lot of Mets fans were pretty adamant that they didn't want to see a 40-year-old be signed by the New York Mets and David Stearns. So he is going to be performing for them, and he's been pretty great for them so far. And Joan Duran, I mean, he has been absolutely lights out. Everybody knows about his entrance over there in Philly. I guess they call him the Durantula. I don't know exactly what's going on over there, but he's been lights out for them. And we talk about a comparison between big bullpen arm acquisitions. That acquisition seems to be a lot more effective than Ryan Helsley right now for the New York Mets. Hopefully that changes. But this is exactly why I say that the first two starts will mean the world for a decision or lack thereof to bring up another arm for this rotation. And it's not Brandon Sproat, who struggled in an outing coming out of the bullpen, giving up 7 earned runs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's Jonah Tong. This is the biggest question of them all, Mets fans. Is Jonah Tong coming up to be a impactful rotation arm for the Mets or not? And there's been a lot of buzz from SNY, from the New York Post and John Heyman. A lot of baseball media is talking about Jonah Tong and about the Mets potentially bringing him up within this week. Perhaps even depending on how Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea perform against the Phillies this series. According to SNY's John Harper, the Mets need to change their conservative approach to promoting minor league pitchers as they make their playoff push. Jonah Tong and his dominance is just one part of that conversation. John Harper took the words right out of my mouth, and I could not agree more with him. If you didn't get an impactful arm this offseason, you didn't want to dabble in the big pitching market that was present, that's fine. You didn't want to trade for an impactful arm because they were too expensive at the deadline, that's fine. But you cannot also delay the inevitable with the rotation and what is the future of this rotation if you want to win now. And I'm not saying rush them, right? Because this more pertains to Jonah Tong, and we've seen Nolan McLean already succeed. Brandon Sproat's been up, he's been down. I guess the jury is still out on Brandon Sproat and what he's going to do when he comes up and how ready he really is. But everything that we're hearing, Jonah Tong is ready. Jonah Tong's ready. He looks fantastic. He's got only 11 innings under his belt in AAA, and it's AAA, by the way. We don't need to see 50 innings to know that he's ready because AA is already considered the more talented league than AAA. But nonetheless, if you want to see anything from him in AAA, look at the 11 innings pitched already. He's given up no earned runs. The advanced metrics on all of his pitches, induced vertical break, spin rate, everything. Everything says he's ready. So let's see him. We want to win now. We're not waiting for 2026. We want to win now, and Jonah Tong gives the Mets the best chance to do that alongside Nolan McLean in this rotation. These are the updated NL wildcard standings for your New York Mets before we round out this video. The Cubs are gaining ground in that number one spot. The Padres and the Dodgers are actually tied at 74 and 57 apiece, and they're both in that kind of division leader / second wildcard standings position. And the Mets are right there clinging on to that third spot at 69 and 61. The Mets are trying to rack up their 70th win of this season tonight. The Reds are right behind them, 1.5 games back, and they're going to be meeting each other soon in what is a must-win series for the New York Mets to try to get that tiebreaker on the season. And the Diamondbacks leapfrog over the Cardinals for that other spot, 5.5 games back, looking to also make a run with just over 30 games left this season. So things are very tight in the playoff picture. I'll say it once more, and I said it on the pregame yesterday, right? I still don't think that the Reds are a serious threat to the New York Mets when it's all said and done. If this pitching can get it together, if the Mets bring up Jonah Tong and he makes a similar impact that Nolan McLean has made, if the bullpen can figure it out with the big pieces like Reed Garrett and Ryan Helsley, I don't think that the Reds are even in consideration here. This is the Mets' position to lose. The biggest threat to the New York Mets is the New York Mets. That's really it. That's really it. And that comes from beating themselves. Don't beat yourself up, right? Limit the walks from the pitching perspective and keep on being aggressive with the bats. That is the recipe for success. And that is how the New York Mets are going to win the most games as possible in these 30-plus games remaining of this season. Let's go Mets. We'll see you all for the post-game stream tonight after Game 1 between the Mets and the Phillies. Peace.